Volume Podcast.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katharine Jarmul. I work in data science experience and product at Cape Privacy. And my background, or how I would describe myself, is as a bit of a privacy activist in the AI and machine learning space. I'm really excited to be here today.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for being here. We're very excited as well. What do you think it's in you? What do you think it's yours? It's your own that drove you up to this point and drives you to do what you do today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's interesting because when I started my data science journey, it was long ago when we just did basic statistical modeling and we thought that was kind of everything that we could do. And then when the eve of kind of machine learning as we know it today came in 2012, 2013, I was actually actively working kind of as a data engineer. I guess you could think of it now, we would call it a data engineer, but then we just called it a back end engineer. And I got really excited because there was all these new breakthroughs in NLP, and that was some of the background of what I did in university. And so I was like, oh, this is so cool. And so around that time, or shortly thereafter, I moved to Berlin, Germany, where I'm still based now. And I started doing NLP as a consultant and as a contractor for numerous companies, both here in Berlin and then internationally. And as I was doing that consulting work, I think sometimes I was given access to data sets that I was a little bit nervous about, let's just say, it was nobody's fault. It was, I'm not, it's, it was simply that we didn't really have the right tools to think about privacy when we wanted to do something like machine learning, especially larger models or on larger data sets. And I think around that time, I guess that would have probably been 2016, 2017 or so, I didn't know anybody that was working in the privacy and machine learning space, but there were people. And so I started, getting interested in the research, reaching out to people who were actively publishing on it, and starting to get to know some folks here in Berlin and internationally who really cared about this and who were kind of trying to build technology applications, new ideas about how can we preserve privacy of individuals in data sets, of secret information in data sets, but still let us use the power of machine learning. And I think then for the past 5 years, it's just kind of become more and more, more and more my jam over time.
And why do you think you picked the subject? Or did the subject pick you? Or what do you think drove you to choose this path?
Yeah. So, I mean, originally engineering or, statistics spoke to me. I was always good at math as a kid, and I had a lot of good role models. So some of my favorite math teachers were women. My stepmother has a master's in mathematics. And so I think that really helped make me feel like even though I was a bit of an oddity I went to university in 2001, so it was like a very bubble time to be in computer science and mathematics. And that I definitely had some odd experiences sometimes in my classes and so forth. I definitely, have experienced forms of sexism in the tech industry, as we kind of all know that they're there and they exist. But I did also have a lot of strong women in my life who were also really good at math. So that that helps a little bit to kind of just take the course. There was a diversion. I did kind of divert. I went into journalism for a while and I did data journalism, which was really, really exciting. And then I kind of got sucked back into technology. So I've kind of dabbled a little bit, which is exciting. And I think the reason why privacy spoke to me is because I see it as fundamentally connected also to inequalities and other issues. So I think the people whose privacy is the least respected is usually the people with the least amount of power in our societies. And I think what can happen, particularly in a field like machine learning, is those people can be unfairly targeted for a variety of reasons and don't have as equal access to counter the machine learning systems that they engage with in their daily life.
Do you think that the journalism moment helped bring that type of questioning, or?
It probably existed before, but yes, yes, most likely. Yeah, I think so. I grew up in Southern California, in kind of greater Los Angeles area, and I think in the 90s, as you can imagine. And so I think between the Rodney King riots and a lot of things that were happening at that point in time, um, the OJ trial and so forth, that it was really a point, at least minimally, I can speak to Los Angeles, where we were having a lot of conversations around oppression and racism and other inequalities. And I think at that point in time, I was a teenager, and I was like, what does this all mean? And I think I kind of gravitated towards slightly more, I guess, political topics for some people, but I would see it as kind of justice and equality topics.
And how do you describe your work today? So from there to what you do today, how's your work? So what do you do?
Yeah, yeah. So now, for the first time, really in a while, I'm not directly doing machine learning. I'm doing product. So I'm really building tools that machine learning folks use. And I love it, and it's hard, and I'm learning, and it's really interesting for me. And so yeah, the product that we're building is allowing people to do machine learning on encrypted data. And so I've actually also had to learn quite a lot about cryptography that I didn't know before, which is a fun, steep learning curve there.
And then your these products are applied for a few areas, or if you can go a little bit deeper into what you're being building.
Yeah, yeah. So the company is called Cape Privacy, and the product that we have essentially allows you to do a variety of different types of machine learning on encrypted data. Normally, the first question I get is it homomorphic encryption? And it's not. So homomorphic encryption is great. It is a little compute intensive. So you can think of homomorphic encryption as something where you really need a lot of compute to do machine learning with it. And the type of encryption that we use at CAPE is called multi-party computation. And specifically, we use something called secret sharing. And what we've been able to do, or what the research team has really been able to do, is to optimize certain ways that we use secret sharing so that they can be a little bit faster. So essentially tensorizing different types of secret sharing operations so that they can be useful for things like deep learning, but also really anything where you need tensors, which is pretty much all of machine learning. So yeah, and that's and then we have several libraries and different tools that our customers use to essentially take sensitive data across two or more parties and then build a machine learning model either together or separately on that data.
So when you look back and from where you began, where you started, and what you're doing now, developing products, how did that change your vision of the world?
Yeah, I think at some point in time you shift from wanting to do, I think, to wanting to create, or at least that's how it happened to me. It kind of went from, hey, this is cool, I'm learning, I'm exploring, and I'm doing a lot of this machine learning and data science, and here's some topics I care about. Let me learn more about those. And then I think at some point in time, at least in my experience, it ended up being such that I wanted to then build something other people could use. I said, you know, okay, it's enough doing on mine. Like, if I were to create something new, what could it look like? What would it be like? What problem do I want to solve? And I think we all kind of have that tinkering mindset, but for me, there was kind of this significant inflection point where I kind of wanted to go from from just building the models to building things that could build models, so that we could maybe solve some of the problems, at least as far as I saw it.
And how do you think, or how do you hope that your work and also privacy will impact whoever's listening to the podcast?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think there's multiple facets there. So on the one hand, I think that there's growing awareness within the data science and machine learning community around privacy issues. And so that's I think one thing that I've noticed and that I love and want to support. I think if we're not asking the questions, I don't know who is. So the fact that I think we are asking the questions and we're talking to each other about it, this is a massive step forward for everyone, and for everyone that will ever touch and use technology that we help build. Because yeah, we're the builders, so we have to ask questions, and we have to be thoughtful. So there's some of that. But then one thing that I noticed that I think also made me want to shift from the kind of making to building is most of the privacy and machine learning that I found was extremely complicated to use. You basically had to become an expert to start to reason about how to do it well. And one thing I'm all about is accessibility. And so it was kind of like, hey, I'm a machine learning person, engineer, scientist, whomever, and I want to do the right thing, but I don't want to have to essentially get a separate PhD in privacy, you know? And I think that's one of the things that I'm hoping to help solve. And so I think, this is one of the main things that is still this challenge. And my company is working on it. Many, many companies are working on it, of how do we make it easier to think about something like privacy? How do we make it easier to think about something like transparency or ethics or impact of the models that we're building? And I think the more there's tools that enable that without having to get your PhD in differential privacy or get your PhD in cryptography or something like this, the better it should be, right? Like, I should be able to just still do my job as a machine learning engineer, as a scientist, and then know that I can pull in things to help me do it in a more ethical, more thoughtful manner.
And how do you see this in 10 years? How do you see the future of this, the short future of this?
Well, I hope that we've kind of solved a lot of these problems. We've solved these problems and we're helping solve other problems then with bigger data sets. I mean, really, the dream would be that we've advanced the field of privacy preserving machine learning, but also advanced the field of ethical impact, transparency, and so on, such that we can actually solve bigger problems. Because I think one of the problems that at least I see every day in machine learning is the important data sets, and this is something that you all are working on as well. The most important data sets are also the most sensitive data sets. And if we don't figure out a way to do that in a privacy aware way and in an ethical and thoughtful way, then we will not be solving the most important problems.
And then this is kind of personal, but how do you see your life in 10 years?
In 10 years. Okay. I hope that we haven't reached the 1.5 degree climate change issue. Um, I hope that minimally that. And I think I think that I will probably still continue to be doing activism within the machine learning space. I guess if we've solved all the problems, I'll just relax somewhere. But you can count on me. If we haven't solved all the problems, I'll still be around. You can look me up. We can do some work together. But yeah, I think if we have solved all the problems, I'll be on a beach in Greece somewhere. But if we haven't, then still be at it.
That's a great idea. Catherine, thank you so much for talking to us.
Awesome. Thank you.
It was inspiring. It was fun. So it was I was excited to talk to you and was hoping for this. So thank you so much. It was really cool.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
We love it. The Volume Podcast.